behind this video is, it's probably on this side, so we're going. The idea behind the video is that I've heard people talk about the spring thaw happening every year.
Okay.
So after what could be a really hard winter for this real estate market, to what extent are you seeing that thaw happening now that April and May have rolled around?
Well, there is a traditional spring thaw, and if you actually follow people's business patterns, if you know exactly when you do most of your business, company-wide, my personal history, and industry-wide, we do most of our business. We do over 50% of our business during the first 1/3 of the year. So there is always a spring thaw. This year, there's definitely been an uptick in activity. The number of sales in Chicago is up about 40% from February to March, and from March until April again. But those figures are still off 25% year over year.
And then, in terms of what that means for you interacting with buyers and sellers day to day, have you seen their attitudes or approaches change? I know people have been kind of hesitant, shopping around a lot. Is that starting to lighten up just in the way that they behave?
Well, the first thing that we noticed that even though that you could get a really good deal at the beginning of the year, buyers still were not out. They just simply weren't out in the marketplace at all. Then during, I would say, starting in March and through today, buyers are out there in the marketplace. Of course, not as many of them, but they are out looking. Some of them are going to contract. They're still looking to get really good deals. The inventory that's moving is inventory that's priced really aggressively, or priced taking into consideration the decline in values in certain neighborhoods. Buyers are also putting in very aggressive offers compared to what they were able to do in years past, not always successfully, because some sellers have already marked their properties down 10%, 15% over what they could have gotten a year ago, and are not interested in entertaining offers that are another 10% off of that.
And do you fear that something like this changes the whole real estate game, where even buyers are being a little more ballsy than anyone ever would to do this? Is it something that years down the road people are going to think about real estate in a different way because of all the kind of negotiations, and even with short sale properties and deals with banks, that there seems to be less of a this is how we do business, and more of like, okay, we're both kind of making concessions to get a deal going here?
In the long run, real estate is still going to be historically a pretty good value proposition. If you look at any point on the timeline over the last 100 years, real estate has appreciated enough where it doubles every 10 years. I don't know if you started measuring on a timeline that started 1 year ago, if 9 years from today, you'd still be able to see that doubling every 10 years phenomenon. I think that when people look back in history about what's going on in the real estate market, this will be more of an economic downturn than a real estate downturn, and it'll just be a blip, a distant memory.
And then, if we talk specifically about where we are right now, Lakeview, Lincoln Park area, what's the story then of these neighborhoods in the last couple of years? When did you first start to see maybe the effects of a housing crisis, and then how has that played out specifically here?
Well, it is nice that Lincoln Park, more so than Lakeview, but two premium Northside neighborhoods in the city of Chicago that can be a bit insulated from the terrible downturn. I would say that my statistics for the Lincoln Park market show that property values stayed steady or declined somewhere between 0 and 5%. In the Lakeview market, it's more like 10% to a 15% decline. But rather than losing their shirts on real estate, a lot of sellers were in the position to simply sit the market out. So rather than selling to take a profit, selling to make a lifestyle choice, selling because they'd like to just pick up and move across the country or move to the suburbs for a bigger place, they just simply decided to wait it out rather than take a loss, lose a few $1,000s, lose a few tens of thousands of dollars. They thought they would just wait a while, try and make up the difference over time, and then get back in the real estate market later. The neighborhoods have also not been ravaged by foreclosures. So if you look up and down the streets, you see just about the normal number of for sale signs, and you don't see the banners that say bank-owned property. You don't see the banners that say foreclosed properties. There are a few, but there's not as many. And when you're out doing showings with sellers, real estate agents, when you ask them what's the seller's situation, it might be a job transfer, it might be relocation, but overall you're not hearing a lot of tales of hardship or woe.
And then you said that a lot of buyers are waiting on their properties to sell later. Can you even project ahead to when that later will be? When do you think we'll start seeing those people saying, okay, well maybe now is the time? Is that happening in the spring for some people or in the next couple of years?
Well, I knew that we were going to need a lot of time to sell whatever inventory came on the market this year, and I encouraged a lot of my sellers to try and get on the market the very first day of spring market, and the first day of spring market in real estate is the day after Super Bowl. And so I started writing to my clients and asking them to start preparing for their sales between Christmas and New Year's. Nobody listened, not one of them. There's been a lot of inventory that went on the market during the month of April, and a whole other flood of inventory coming on the market in May. People think this is spring, but this really is summer. I mean, Labor Day is just 1 week away from today, and a lot of inventory is still coming on the market. I would say that inventory figures are up by about 1/3 from a month ago. These folks would have been better off putting the properties on the market several months ago, but the buyers weren't out either, so I may be proved wrong.
But now you're starting to see more interest from buyers now that...
True. I sold nearly everything in my inventory about 1 week ago, leaving just one languishing on the market, and that's a fairly new listing, and we did an aggressive price reduction yesterday, so I think that one's going to just have to spend 60 days on the market rather than 30 days on the market, and it'll be sold in a month.
And I assume that's a good position to be in, to
Absolutely.
have sold everything. And then, how would this kind of compare to if we were having this interview like a year ago? What's happened in the market since then?
Well, a year ago, buyers stopped shopping altogether. They were scared. They left the market in droves. They didn't know where the bottom was. They were afraid that if they bought today, the property could be worth thousands or several percent less in a week or a month or a couple of months. Nobody knew where it would end. Banks stopped lending money. Credit dried up. Buyers who had to buy couldn't even get loans anyways. I had properties that went on the market during the spring of 2008, and they did last all the way until the spring of 2009. So 10 months, 11 months, 12 months on the market because there was nobody in the marketplace whatsoever.
So overall, things are getting better. If there's a big picture story, is that we're on an upswing, or that customers are seeing about them?
Specifically in Lincoln Park and Lakeview, definitely. Citywide, not as rosy as here, but there is still an uptick in activity in business.
Okay, and then are there any questions that you wish I would have asked you, or things that you had thought about, or things that are relevant to this neighborhood that are worth mentioning for?
Couldn't say so.
Okay, great. I'm going to take a peek and just make sure that nothing came out weird or funky with the audio in case we have to retape one or two, but other than that...